Alright guys, welcome back to another one. We've got quite the interesting slice of pie to talk about today that has recently been making the rounds. A claim that both Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth will be making their way to both Xbox and even Nintendo Switch 2, with Remake launching this year on those platforms and Rebirth launching next year in 2026. Now, this is stemmed from the Nate the Hate podcast. Nate is a bit of an industry insider. He's got a bit of a track record and quite the reputation. He has definitely been wrong about things in the past, but has also been right, and hence why this is sort of making headlines at the moment. Now, I guess you could say it was sort of only inevitable that at some point these games would make their way to the Xbox ecosystem. It's still kind of surprising that, at least looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake, that hasn't made its way to Xbox just yet. I know that the Xbox player base have been dying to get their hands on Remake, and hopefully Rebirth in the final third part, so cool to hear that might potentially be happening. But I guess the big surprising thing here is looking at these two games coming to Nintendo Switch 2. We are obviously probably only about a week out from the official reveal to finally understand how powerful this system is, to get a good look at the specs, and what exactly it is capable of. There is currently a ton of leaks, and with all of the leaks that we have at the moment, we're estimating that the power scale of this new Nintendo system is somewhere around the equivalent power of a PlayStation 4, which would match it to that of something like a Steam Deck. Whether or not it's going to be a little bit weaker than a Steam Deck to get that better price point, or perhaps maybe a little bit stronger, unsure, but at least from what Digital Foundry have said, they believe that its power isn't quite PS4 Pro, but is somewhere around being equivalent to PS4. Now, theoretically, that would then make sense for it to be able to at least look at handling games like this. With optimizations, though, of course, we know that there's going to be DLSS AI upscaling and super sampling, so with those all taken into account, looking at something like Remake or even Rebirth with the right optimizations, as much as it's hard to believe, yeah, absolutely, this could definitely be a possibility. Albeit you're going to be playing a significantly visually and performance downgraded version of both of these games. That's sort of the compromise you make if you're wanting to play games like this portably. It's still pretty cool to know that they are finally coming to the Nintendo platform. There's a lot of doubters right now saying that there's just absolutely no way, looking at something like at least Rebirth being the most recent Final Fantasy title to release, that it could possibly even run on the Switch 2. People should realize that Square Enix right now, with the upcoming PC release of Rebirth, are actually making optimization so that it is compatible and can run on the Steam Deck. We don't really know what that looks like. It'll probably be a case of the game running at like 25-30 frames at 480p, upscaled to that of 720 or 1080, whatever it might end out being. But still, it's a cool thing to know that we are going to be able to play this game portably via the Steam Deck. And so because Square Enix are actually going out of their way to make Steam Deck optimizations, no doubt, looking at something like the Nintendo Switch 2 that obviously has a much bigger install base, they'll probably be doing the same for that system, as it is rumored, at least, to be equivalent power of that of the Steam Deck, or somewhere around that, with potentially better upscaling technology. This does line up with Square Enix's current plans, with how they're wanting to basically stop console exclusivity and basically bring their games to as many systems and platforms as possible. And from the literal mention within the earnings report talking about the multi-platform focus, it does specify both Nintendo and Xbox. As stated here, Square Enix will strive to maximize the acquisition of new users when launching a title even. So even when it comes to day one launches, yeah, they're wanting to bring their games to as many platforms and systems as possible. Additionally, it also aligns up with some information that was provided through an interview with Hamaguchi and Katase recently, with how they mentioned that one of the focuses of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project is to try and deliver this trilogy of games to as many players as possible. This tells us that their current goal is to make ports for other systems. It will be huge if Square Enix can start delivering some of their big blockbuster AAA Final Fantasy games onto the Nintendo system specifically. I mean, Xbox is one thing, but I think you're going to have more people interested in Final Fantasy looking over at Nintendo. If Square Enix can have Final Fantasy launching Day 1 on Nintendo Switch 2, alongside PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, that's a huge win for Square. Albeit, people will be playing a downgraded version of those Final Fantasy games going forward if you are deciding to choose Nintendo Switch 2 as your console of choice. And this is exactly what Square want to do. They want to break away from any timed exclusivity, looking at what they've been doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, and Final Fantasy XVI, launching exclusively on PlayStation 5, having to remain on the system for a very minimum of a year. And it would seem, if this turns out to be true, that these games had to remain as a PlayStation 5 console exclusive, looking at like Remake possibly releasing this year on other systems like Switch and Xbox, for multiple years. I also want to provide a little bit of an update towards the rumored Square Enix showcase that is supposed to be happening in February. This is some news that I broke a few weeks back from a source of mine. And just to provide more context towards that, I have heard that this showcase is actually going to have a major focus on Nintendo Switch 2 titles from Square Enix. We should be hearing about Switch 2 this month. The big reveal from Nintendo themselves apparently is happening as early as next week. A lot of people thought it was last week, and so we now move on to next week, but it should be happening sometime here in January. The news I broke about the rumored Square Enix showcase is meant to be happening sometime mid-Feb. There have also been product pages for a bunch of unannounced games from various different publishers and developers that have been found, and Square Enix currently have 4 unannounced games for Switch 2. If the rumored showcase that I've heard about ends up being true, a lot of those titles will be revealed there, and if what Nate the Hate's saying, then at least one of them should be Final Fantasy VII Remake for Switch 2, which is a pretty crazy thing to think about. I also hope that one of these unannounced games for Switch 2 is the native Kingdom Hearts collection, not the cloud versions or any of that garbage. We already know that even looking at like the current Switch, it would be more than capable of running those older Kingdom Hearts titles, and even Kingdom Hearts 3, the UE 4K games with a little bit of tweaking and optimization. But Switch 2, again, would be more capable of running something like Kingdom Hearts 3 with a few tweaks, because we know currently right now, the Steam Deck runs KH3 pretty fine. But there is going to be a lot of Switch 2 stuff coming from Square. We also have no idea what Square plan on doing for 2025, aside from like Dragon Quest 1, 2 HD, 2D Remake, and a couple of mobile phone games. I think that because 2025 is the launch year of Nintendo Switch 2, this will be one of their major priorities, and they're simply right now just waiting for the console to be officially revealed. So definitely some pretty exciting stuff. Keep in mind that all of this is basically just rumor mill for the time being, but by the end of February, I think we should have a lot of these rumors cleared up, and hopefully a good idea as to what Square Enix plan on doing for 2025. Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Just thought I would keep you in the loop. Be sure to slap a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything going on here. A big thank you to my wonderful patrons. I appreciate the ongoing support. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.